Hey guys, it's Miss Heather and I'm here with Samantha and we are going to learn how to sew our pointe shoes. So I've got my pointe shoes here and Sam actually got started on them a little bit. I'm going to give you the quick tutorial and that way you can do them at home, because if you are old enough to wear them, you're old enough to sew them. So the first thing we need to do is mark the placement of our ribbon and elastic, and this is probably the most important thing. So our elastic is going to go in the back of the shoe, back here on the heel. So I'm going to show you, if you turn your shoe inside out like this, you've got this seam down the middle, and I'm actually going to mark it with a pen and put an X here on each side of the seam. Okay. So when you look in there, you're going to see that's where you're going to sew your elastic. So you can see that Sam started here. So she got started with one side, and so then this is going to go around your ankle and get sewn into the other side, just like that. Okay? So that's the placement for the elastic. For the ribbon, the way we do this is you fold the heel all the way in like this until it makes like a triangle on each side. And that triangle is where you're going to sew the ribbon. So I'm going to mark that. So right here, and on this side, right where the sticker is, that I'm going to peel out. Okay, so you can see there, that's where it is. Don't do it by these seams, because on different shoes, these seams are placed in different places, higher or lower along the side of the shoe. So the rule of thumb is you fold the back heel in all the way, and right there on those triangles where the fold is, that's where the ribbon is placed, okay? So now that we know where to sew our ribbon and elastic, I'm gonna mark this side too, real quick, just so that you can see it with both shoes when I work with them. And go ahead and mark your shoes just like I'm doing, so that you're not mistaken when you start to actually get in there with the ribbon and elastic. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is determine how long our elastic needs to be. So you probably just got one big long piece of elastic, and you're going to need to measure it around your ankle and see how long it needs to be. So Sam is going to slip her shoe on. Go ahead, slip it on. Okay, so we've got this one side already sewn in, and pretend like I'm using the whole big piece. She's actually, yeah, we're going to need to tighten that up anyway. So you want it to be taut, but not like really tight like that, right? So the whole idea is this is going to hold the heel of your shoe on. So you want to measure it and figure out where it needs to be, where it's taut. So, and then give yourself a little bit of slack. So this is a good length. And then I'll probably sew it in with a little, about a thumb's length there of slack. Okay, so you determine how long that needs to be. Maybe you want to use a measuring tape, as you do it, or you mark it and then cut it. However it's easiest for you to do. So a lot of times what I like to do is even come in and pin these. And I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So you have to figure out the length of that elastic. So that's the first thing. The next thing we're going to do is figure out the length of the ribbon. So this one's easier. You don't have to actually measure anything like you do for the elastic. It's really important that the elastic, you might have extra elastic that you're just going to throw away or use for another project later, because everybody's ankle is a different size. For the ribbon though, everybody's got the same length ribbon, and we're going to open it all the way up, and we're going to fold it in half and fold it in half again. So we're folding it in quarters. So we fold it in half, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it at the half mark. And then I'm going to fold it in half again. And cut it again. So we end up with 4 equal parts. Okay? There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And you're gonna keep the entire length of those ribbons. If I decide, once I see you tie them, that they can be trimmed, then we'll do that together. So the next thing you have to do with your ribbon is prepare it to sew, because you don't want this to fray. You can already see this is starting to fray, right? And we don't want that to happen, because then you won't have ribbon left. So there's a couple ways to do this. One is to use some clear nail polish and just paint the edge. The other way, and girls, don't do this by yourself, is with a lighter, and we're just gonna sear the edges of the ribbon. And that way you'll feel kind of a little ridge then, and that way it won't fray. So we're gonna do that real quick. And it is actually real quick, a little quicker than waiting for nail polish to dry. Sam, when you guys do this at home, when Catherine sews hers, does she use clear nail polish or does she use a lighter? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah. Everybody kind of does it different. It just depends. But girls, if you want to use the lighter, if you want to do it that way, let your moms do it. Because you don't want to start a fire or light your ribbons on fire and then have to go back and buy more ribbon. But it's a good way to do it. All right, 1, 2. I think we've got this one more to do. Did I do that one? Nope. Okay. All right, so my ribbon is ready and my elastic is ready. Next, I'm going to show you how to thread your needle. Now, I'm going to show you the way I like to do it. So we've got this stitch kit here, which I think I'm messing up how it's coming out. Okay, so I like to use a really long piece of thread, and I'm going to double it. Now the stitch kit thread is nice and thick. So if you don't have a stitch kit, I recommend really thick thread like quilting thread, or even using unwaxed dental floss. All right, so this is easy because it's just like floss and you can just tear it, although I think it just frayed when you trim that. Okay, so let me show you how I like to do this. If anybody's ever done any counted cross stitching, I thread it like counted cross stitching. So I'm going to put the two ends together, fold it in half. See that? So my two ends are together. And then I'm going to thread those in together into the eye of the needle. And you pull it through till you've got a little slack, and then you're going to fold it over like that. And you just have to kind of hold on to it, okay? The reason why we do this is because this helps us avoid having to make a knot when we sew. So I'm going to get my elastic where I want it to be, right here in the back. And when we sew, so this is totally fine. Catherine started sewing this for Samantha, and see how she's kind of made a box shape. That's totally fine, as long as you sew all the way up to the edge of this drawstring casing, because the whole point is that it needs to pull the shoe up from the drawstring casing, right? And also don't sew into the drawstring casing, because then you won't be able to pull the drawstring. It's got to be functional. Okay, so I've got my elastic ready. Now I usually just go back and forth straight. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go back and forth straight along right under that casing. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go in, right there, right under the casing. And I'm not going to pull this all the way through. I'm going to go until I have that loop at the end, right? And then I'm going to go in, and when I go in with my needle, I'm going to go through the loop. Let me get this all the way out real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go through the loop. There's my loop, and that way when I pull it, I don't have to have a knot. so it's knotted up. You just have to make sure that you don't pull your needle without holding on to the end. So see how I kind of hold the needle with my pointer finger and thumb, and then I use my middle finger and ring finger to kind of hang on to that thread so it doesn't go anywhere. Then all you have to do is go back and forth. And this is where you're probably going to want to have a thimble. That eye of the needle kind of needs a little work to get through. So we're going to go back and forth, just in and out. It doesn't have to be anything special. I promise I won't inspect your stitching. It doesn't matter. It would never be seen from stage. So as long as, here we go. As long as you're just going in and out, that's all you need to do. But you have to go back and forth several times, because once this starts being functional and actually is holding your shoe on against the pressure of, you know, you dancing and moving, then, you know, we don't want your elastic to pop off. This eye is a little bit big. It has to be worked through a little bit. I like to make sure that I get around the edge of the elastic. So I usually go on the outside of it like that. And then I come back in right on the edge to make sure that I'm getting it all the way through. Oops. Goodness. All right. So that's all you have to do. You're going to go back and forth until you have a nice line. I even bought a thimble for this demonstration. I forgot to grab it, but it would help because sometimes getting this needle through is tricky with the elastic particularly. All right, so we would keep working this out. I'm not going to continue doing it for you, but you get the idea. So the whole gist here is that you sew back and forth. Probably, I would say, I mean, if you've got this nice thick thread, at least 4 times, maybe 6, so that it's sewn all along the back here, and it's nice and taut. You can see when I pull it, how it's pulling right there under the drawstring casing. So that's what you want it to do, okay? So the same thing for our ribbon. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pull my needle out here. I'm gonna leave that partially done for you, Samantha. And I'm gonna get some more thread and show you what to do with the ribbon. It's really the same kind of thing. In fact, yeah. All right, here's what I do with the ribbon. I like to fold it over and then fold it over one more time. And that's how I'm gonna sew it into the shoe. And that way it has a little more strength to the ribbon. And then, so you're gonna put it right there in place, and same thing, you're just gonna sew through it. Sometimes it helps if you use a straight pin and pin it in so that you can, you know, do it a little more freely. And then you're just gonna do the same thing. Sew back and forth, just the way I demonstrated for the elastic. Sew back and forth right there under the casing. And then that way it'll pull the center of your shoe up so that your arch looks real pretty when you're standing on point. That pulls the arch of your shoe up, okay? So, and then the ends are nice and already seared or painted with clear nail polish, so they're not gonna fray. And you've got that little extra strength on the inside as well, so that the ribbon, sometimes if you just do it one layer, then with the stitches, it just kind of pulls through like that and just kind of tears your ribbon open. So I really do recommend folding 1, 2 like that, like a little sandwich, and then place it. Okay, so I'll show you my first pair of pointe shoes, and these are old school Capezios, and these ribbons are looking a little cranky now. I think my mom did these on the sewing machine when I very first got them, and I was 9 when I got pointe shoes. I was way too young. And this actually shows you a way that I don't want you to do the elastic or the ribbon. So we did it in a full circle back here. So we don't want it like that. We want to make sure that it's the way I did it. So it's pulling up from both sides, right? Like that. And then the ribbon, you can see she did fold it over and then sewed it with a sewing machine back and forth and back and forth. So, and check this out, girls. This is the loose lamb's wool that we were talking about. We would just stuff up in our shoes. So, and you can also tell where I didn't wear them out properly. I couldn't get all the way up over my box, and I was way back here on the back of my box, and so they wore out just on that little edge. So that's something to test yourself when you're dancing. If you're dancing like you should all the way on your box, then you're gonna get an even wear and tear out on the whole box. Okay, so I think we got it all covered. We got the placement of the elastic and ribbon. Remember, you have to measure the elastic specific for your ankle length. And then the ribbon, we cut into fourths and we make sure that we keep it from fraying, and then we can sew it in place. The one other thing I want to show you is how to tend your shoes. You want to make sure that you keep them nice and neat. After you wear them, you want to always take the toe pads out, and you're going to put them in your little mesh bag, and that mesh bag should stay on the outside of your dance bag. If you put it in your dance bag and zip it up, then they don't get to air out and dry, and they need to dry out because these are layers and layers of canvas and glue. They're actually not wood. They're canvas and glue that's compacted really tight, and over time with your body heat and your sweat, it wears them out and it makes it really soft. So the important thing is to air it out so that it has a little more life. So the way you fold them is you fold the heel in like this, and then you fold one side in and then the other side in like that. And then you've got your ribbon. You can tell these have been tied and hanging. Then you got your ribbon down here, and you can smooth that out and you wrap it around. There you go, like that. You can even tuck it in if you want to, so it doesn't go anywhere. And that way then you can put them into your bag and keep them nice and neat. Of course, the toe pad's already out, and then the ribbon doesn't end up looking like this. Okay, so that's how you care for your pointe shoes. And when we get into class on Monday, I'll show you all how to tie them, because that's important too. So, okay, that's the deal. Anything else? Any questions you have, Samantha? Do you feel like you know what to do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, with the sewing, guys, you just go in and out and in and out. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And if you do want to go, like Catherine did, around the whole perimeter of that extra little bit of elastic, that's fine, right? Or if you want to just go straight back and forth, as long as you sew right underneath that casing so that it pulls it up. Okay. All right, guys, say bye, Samantha.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.